Okay, guys, it's 6 p.m. and we've got a lot of ground to cover. I think we're going to go ahead and get started if we could. So welcome back. We have the 4 tables here for committee members, and then we always welcome the public to come observe these meetings, and you guys are welcome to come. We just ask that as the members of the public that you observe and not participate. So tonight what we're going to be doing as a committee is working in some small groups, and you see you have a lot of maps and options in front of you, the 2 draft options that we want you to start giving us some your reactions to. And as you guys work on that, just ask the public to sort of let the committee do their work and not interrupt the committee as they do some of their important work in evaluating these options. So we are here on our second meeting, meeting number 2. After this meeting, we have a 3rd meeting, and the objective of this meeting is to start evaluating some of these options and get some of your feedback from the options. And really what I'd like to see is have you drive, some of your input drive another option, another map that we can generate to give you some things to consider. We have a 3rd meeting at the end of July, which we will be looking at, again, I'll be bringing back some materials. And really the focus for this meeting and the next meeting is not to figure out the best plan to recommend for the rezoning, but really to bring a series of options that we feel we could share with the public in a draft form. And so we'll be engaging the public in August, and knowing that these options aren't going to be perfect and they're still going to be draft, just sharing them with the public and getting some concepts and some thoughts from the public as they go through and look at the maps as well. Tonight's agenda, we want to review some new information, and I'm going to give you an overview of the draft options, and really we want to spend most of this time in small group discussion, and then have you guys break out your comments to the group as a whole. So why are we doing this? Or why is there a need to convene this group? There's 3 new buildings opening in fall 2020. Green Elementary School in South is opening with 1,000 seats. New George Mason Elementary School is opening with 750 seats. And then Thompson Middle School is opening with 1,500 seats. And so those are the primary factors that are driving the need to look at rezoning.
We installed the new middle school on Hull Street.
The new middle school on Hull Street, yes sir, the new middle school. And you'll see I've been calling it the new middle school on the Elkhart site, but the new middle school on Hull Street, I'll take note of that, and that's what we will reference it as. But in addition to that, you are also tasked to look at seeing if there's any other places where there are imbalances in utilization that you can that we may be able to make some zone changes to help address imbalances in utilization. So your primary task is populating those new buildings and making sure that they are effectively utilized, and then looking and see if there's any other adjustments that can be made to balance utilization. There are parts of this, the objectives here that really are more of a higher level than beyond the committee. But what the staff wants to do is get input from you, and those relate to potential school program and central office consolidation opportunities. So that's really more of the staff level is looking at that, and this is helping to inform them as they work through that process. But there are some things that we need to consider as a group, and I'm going to bring up. One thing in particular for focus of this group is Thompson Middle School, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So your task on this committee, is to focus on working as a group to develop and modify options for school attendance boundaries, to effectively populate Green Elementary, Mason, and the new middle school on Hull Street, and then to address any imbalances through rezoning. Some of the things that you're not tasked with, and I know that this committee was thinking, there's a lot of things that you're thinking and going through, but I wanted to make sure that you guys are focused on maps and the boundary maps, which is the most important part of your role is to focus on the boundaries and some of the maps and statistics and things that are at the table. But you're not tasked to evaluate facility condition and make recommendations to facility improvements. So that's something that is beyond the scope of this particular committee. You can provide observations and things like that that we can build on, but and note for the school district, but we're not looking at making facility condition or facility recommendations as it relates to the actual facilities. You're not tasked to make recommendations regarding changes to school or student assignment policies, so different things about policy and things like that. That's not part of your charter. Again, your focus is the boundaries and looking at the options and the real value of you as a committee is giving us your feedback to the options as we are crafting them, and your local knowledge about where. I heard one committee member talking about, oh, this area is cutting an area that's walkable to a school, and that kind of information. That's the real value of having you around these tables, is to give us your local knowledge, focusing on the boundaries as we go through this process. And you're not tasked. There's been a lot of question about VPI and preschool and student-teacher ratios and things like that. Those are all information that we have followed up with you, but that really, the preschools are not assigned by zones. Our focus is rezoning, so we're not looking at actual preschools and what to do with the preschools as part of this. We're focused on the actual attendance boundaries for each school and making modifications to help make sure that they're accurately or efficiently utilized. The big objectives that I want to get out of you guys tonight are, number one, is I want you to review draft options 1 and 2 and give us your input. So there was a lot of discussion last meeting, which is good. It's really good to have open dialogue and discussion. But one of the things that tonight we want to limit that discussion, and I have some notepads on each table, so that if you have a question or a comment or a concern or something like that, what I would prefer is that you note your question on each notepad, on the notepads, and I will collect those and then follow up with you in a structured manner. That avoids us having an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes of discussion and then not getting to the meat of our objectives, which is really looking at the maps. So the first objective is to review the options. The second review, the thing that I'd like to get out tonight, is to get some of your input on Thompson Middle School. Thompson Middle School right now, Elkhart is, there's a new middle school built on the whole site, which is at the old Elkhart Middle School site. It hasn't been fully finalized on what's going to happen to Thompson Middle School. I know a lot of people in the community probably think that Thompson Middle School is just assumed to not stay open. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get some of your input on that. And one of the things I can do is I can generate an option, come back to you at the next meeting, that an option that has Elkhart, Bouchow, or the new middle school at Hull, Bouchow, and Brown, Lucille Brown. So that's something that I'd like to get some of your, like have you guys, when you break into small groups, have that discussion and talk about that and tell me what you think. One of the things I do know with the old Thompson site is that if you had 3 middle schools and Thompson was not part of our formula, you would have better alignment of feeder patterns in the south, better utilization balance in the south, and then and it also touches on one of our objectives is that touches on consolidation and such as well. So that's just food for thought. So the guiding principles, and I went over these last time. Before I go any further, I think there may be a few committee members who weren't here at the last meeting. Who wasn't here at the first meeting? Okay, we have a couple. If you want to just introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how you're affiliated with the district.
I'm Kim Gomez. I live in the 1st District, and
What schools are you most familiar with?
Our zone school is Mary Mumford. My oldest daughter attends John B. Carey, and my son will this fall. So I'm pretty familiar with most of the schools.
Okay, thank you. Sir, could you give us a little introduction?
Yeah, sure. My name is Damian Pitt. I'm a 1st District resident as well, and so I'm my family zoned for Fox Elementary. We were previously zoned for Carey Elementary at the house we lived in previously, so I'm familiar with those areas. I'm also familiar with a school that has an adult softball field attached to it at this point.
Thank you very much. Welcome. So I think everybody else, was there anybody else who didn't come? Well, these are, I think, the public observers. I don't think they're committee members. I think all the committee members should be around the tables here, the 4 tables. I think we're good.
Should I introduce myself? I'm Ms. King. Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Beverly Henderson. I live in the 5th District. We've been most involved with the John B. Carey School, but with other schools in the district as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Ms. Henderson, when we start getting into exercises, if you could sit around one of these, I've had the committee sit around these 4 tables. If possible, that would be helpful. Then we can stay coordinated with the group. So there are guiding principles to follow as we work through this process, and these are basically the rules that you guys look at in determining if you should move a line one way or the other. Are we adhering to these guiding principles? And I've gone over these at the first meeting, so I'm going to recap the one that is really most pertinent to you. The first principle is more related to community engagement and more of a district level principle and bringing you guys around the table and involving the community in this process. So we are adhering to that just by the way the process is structured. The second principle is one that really is the meat of some of your work. So developing new zones for RPS schools that improve the student's experience by ensuring safe and equitable transportation and leveraging natural boundaries when possible. So looking at where the boundaries are aligned, making sure that they're going down major roads if possible, try not to draw them down residential streets and things like that, those types of considerations. Increasing student diversity of all kinds within schools, so looking at the demographic impacts of an option, and what's currently there and what is in the options. Alleviating overcrowding and minimizing, if not eliminating, the use of trailers. So that is basically focusing on the utilization of the schools, and in each option, look and see, are we addressing imbalances? Are we bringing utilization down and making things more balanced and equitable in terms of utilization? Planning for future student population trends and future development. So right now, what the best method in our process is to focus on the students that we know live inside each of these zones, that go to their zone schools. And that's what you have in front of you, the planning block data, like I oriented you around the first meeting. So really the focus for you guys is looking at that. But then also we have some people around the table who are familiar with projections. We've provided some projection data, and we have the demographic study reports here and a couple of different binders that you guys can use for reference if you do need to pull these up. We have 4 of them, and I'll hand them around the tables when we get done. But not only looking at the current, but the future. And you'll see also I have plots that I've taped up. These show you the utilization for the current 5 and 10 year based on the enrollment forecast. We have elementary here. So dark green is the lightest color is the most underutilized. Then it goes to light green, darker green, and then it goes to scales of pink. That shows you the pink are the most overutilized spaces. And you can see the change over time. So you've got elementary there, you have middle school in that corner, and then you have high school over here, so that you can understand how utilization changes over time and what's forecasted to change. And that's something that can help drive some of your considerations on should we put more students in school if it's going to be declining, or fewer if it's growing. Those kind of things that you can be proactive for. Expediting student placement in modern facilities after rezoning. So making best use of the new schools and making sure that the children in Richmond, as many children in Richmond have the opportunity to be educated in a state-of-the-art facility if possible, and making sure that that is something that we try to do and make good use of the new buildings. The third principle is something that's more, again, this is more division related, higher staff, not really the focus of the committee. It's more focused on trying to get rid of vacant and portable spaces, things like that, to make things more efficient, so the district and the division can focus funds on education as opposed to bricks and mortar and things like that. So that's more of something that's a higher level. The second principle is one that is more of a focus for you. It's the concrete information that you can kind of lean on to see if are you adhering to your guiding principles. So we have some follow-ups. There's some materials that we've been provided, and you guys had a lot of questions at the first meeting, and so we followed up with some answers and some materials to help inform you and respond to some of the requests that you've had. The first question was, can you print off demographic and capacity study reports? So these are the ones that we have. We have the demographic study report, the capacity study report, and then we also have the utilization maps in letter size, which I have posted up here. So these are things that we printed off for you guys to use as reference materials. The second question is, can you include the capacity data for specialty schools and preschools? And so we have provided in your capacity study, inside that document, we've updated that capacity study to give the capacity of the specialty schools and the preschools within that. And so that does show the capacities of those buildings. Another question was about income and looking at the income data for the various schools, the various communities in the area, and how can we look at that? So we can't look at free and reduced meal data in Richmond because I think every student in Richmond is eligible for free and reduced meals, so that kind of neutralizes the use of free and reduced meals. But what we've given you is a map that you should have picked up, and this is something that we got from the American Community Survey. It's census data, and this is the way that the American Community Survey reports income, and it has a few classes here that shows the 3 different levels of income per the ACS, and this is something that's done by Census Tract, and so this was really the income data, the best information that we could provide using the census data and using the ACS information to give you a snapshot of how income breaks down across the school division. That's another piece of information for reference. You were asking about large-scale materials and utilization and information like that, and that's as it relates to the capacity when you're looking at the options, and that drove us to develop these large plots that we have taped up here. So you can see the utilization and how it changes over time. You can also, there's a guide, a key that's on the actual plot that shows you the utilization over time and how that changes as well. So that's information there. Can you provide more detail on the racial composition of the Hispanic population? So people were asking about the Hispanic, the race data, and it was showing just the race and ethnic combinations, but it wasn't breaking down things by race, by ethnicity. So Hispanic is not a race, it's an ethnicity. So you can have black Hispanic, you can have white Hispanic, or another race, Hispanic. So what this document right here shows you is it breaks down each school, the racial composition, black, white, and other. And then we also break it down further, so black, non-Hispanic, white, non-Hispanic, and other non-Hispanic. And then also you have black Hispanic, white Hispanic, and other Hispanic. So that kind of informs you on areas that may be predominantly Hispanic and things like that, just as you had requested. It should be, yes ma'am, that should be in your packets if you have it. Yes, it's in there. Okay. If you could just hold and then we'll answer a few questions. Another question was, can you provide more information about the city plan housing so that we can better understand how it impacts rezoning? So public housing and some of the plans in the future. So we've done some research. I've been trying to reach out to RRHA, and we haven't had any luck making contact yet, but we did do some research on their webpage and looked at some of their things, some of their information on there. And these are the 3 things that we found as housing transformation programs. So East End and Creighton Court is planning to a total of 256 units to be completed by 2020. So that's going to bring additional housing units. And once I get more clarification from them, I'll be able to see, is that replacement units or are those new units on top of what they have? If it's new units on top of what they have, you can certainly expect more children to come out of that community if they do build those out. Fay Towers, it's an 11-story multifamily building. It's redeveloped into 3 off-site communities, and Fay Towers will be demolished. So that's another part per the web page. And then Highland Grove is currently still in planning stages and developing 140 to 160 units near Overby Shepherd Elementary School. And so I've been out there. I remember there's a little bit of a lag in the development out there, but they have built some units and things out there. That's what we have so far, and I will continue to research and find more information on that, regarding that, to see if there's anything that you guys need to be mindful of that impacts your work as it relates to rezoning. So we do have limited time, and I want to focus your time on the maps, okay? But what I would say, and I had it noted here to write them on the back of the plots, but everybody has a sheet of paper. There's a tablet, like a notepad at each table. So if you have questions as you're working in small groups, you have things that you'd like, sort of like this, that you need me to follow up on, put those on paper, and I will follow up with them so that we can make sure that we have, that we can control the amount of dialogue and really make best use of your time in looking at the maps and getting some of your gut reactions around the maps as they sit down. I guess we could have just a couple of questions, and then what I'd like to do is limit the questions, like I said, to focusing on the maps. I got some material to cover. I want to orient you with the options, and then break you into some small groups. But maybe we do just a few questions, and then we can continue on.
Thank you so much for providing the additional information. On the map that you provided for the income level, I just want to make sure that is the income level of the neighborhood, not necessarily the income level of the children of the families of children who attend that school. Okay, just need that.
That's a good question. I think I will research. I believe the income is what is. I'll have to look further into that and see what it is. I know it's not based off the student data. It's based off of the actual census, and so I'm guessing it's household income where it's coming from.
But I think the point is that, for instance, a school like Southampton is not drafted from the neighborhood. It's drafted, same with yes.
Right. So yes.
From out of the neighborhood.
So those are reflective of the income of the population that lives inside that area. Yes, ma'am. I do know that.
And that is considerably higher than the income of the student.
Yes. It's based on the resident population. Yes.
I have a question on that side that you said about the recommendation for not using the Oliver Thompson.
Okay.
That alignment.
Okay.
Like if you could share why that is.
Well, yes, I will certainly do that. When I look at the maps, when I get to the option maps, I'll dive into that, and I'll show you what some of my thoughts on that. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious if you could go a little bit into like how you arrive at these options. Like, do you put like the maps into some kind of like algorithm that spits it out? Do you actually draw it out yourself? I see a very kind of high level explanation here for like this is a conservative or this is a more aggressive rezoning option. But like I'm just reading through very briefly, and I'm seeing like there's no change to Mary Mumford in any of the options. But like, why are we doing any changes there? Like, so I'd love to hear kind of like how you guys arrived at what you're arriving at so far.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I will. I think as I go through this, that'll be more clear. So everybody has. You've got your packets. One of the things that we discovered, and when I looked at the prints, is that the letter size maps in the back are cut off, and so the actual letter size prints are not as usable for this meeting. But everything is online, and you can download those and print off the maps of that option statistics packet. But we do have large plots that you guys are going to be working with. It will be the focus of tonight. But and we will also work to get you the corrected prints, the prints that shows the entire district for the letter size documents inside your option statistics packet. This packet right here, this option statistics is something that this is going to be the meat of what I want you guys to focus on tonight. So the option statistics materials has all the statistics. These are the statistics that we rely on to develop rezoning options. And that's the statistics that I would encourage you guys as committee members to rely on as well. And there are the maps in the back are cut off, but you have the large plot maps in front of you to work with and be productive tonight in working through that. The other materials that I've gone through are more for reference and reference material and things that you know you can refer to and look back at, but things that I would not really don't impact our rezoning. Let's see, another thing. I think I missed this slide. Yeah, this is one final follow-up slide. You were asking about potential preschool age population, a forecasted preschool population. So preschool is something that we put together some materials for you that shows 2 sheets here. It shows you the forecasted 3 and 4-year-olds, and then it shows the forecasted 4-year-old population. So VPI students are eligible at 4 years old to participate in the preschool program. And then there's also Head Start's eligible at 3 years old. So as you can see, what we've done is we've shown you the forecasted preschool population. So you can see that there's a critical mass of students at this age level that can certainly fill up a program as large as you want to make it in this school division. The demand is high for preschool, and the programs are currently on a wait list. Much like other school divisions in the U.S., preschool enrollment is limited to the amount of resources the division can allocate to that program. So it's capped. They cap preschool. It's very rarely limited by the demand, so the number of students who are eligible for preschool inside the school division. But we've given you a handout that shows you the pre-K, the forecasted preschool age population, so you can see the proportion of preschool students compared to the number of seats that are available, and that kind of gives you some intel information on preschool. And then there was another handout that we gave you regarding student-teacher ratios that we have that the school division has provided, and we have that for your benefit as well, and that's included in your packet of information. But like I said, the real focus of your work is this options packet and looking at some of the materials in the options packet. So all of this material is now online, and you guys, the members of the public, can download any of these materials, and so there's a web page dedicated for this, as well as other ways to engage us and reach out to the committee and such. I encourage you as committee members to look at the maps. You have large copies of the maps around the table. We've also printed off table plots, so large formats of the tables and the statistics. And you'll see that they are also accompanied with the maps. In case you wanted to look at the stats, this shows you something that kind of breaks down the statistics. It's everything that's in your options packet, but it's put onto a large plot. In case you're looking at things, you want to look at things side by side and study these statistics. But it's important to look not only at the maps, but also look at the numbers and see where you like and don't like the numbers, as well as the maps. So I'm going to go over the options, give you an overview of the options. And so these options have been created by us. We drafted these based off of, we worked on the planning block data and counting students within each planning block. We've basically using our limited knowledge of the city to develop some draft options. And really, this is where you guys, like I said, come into play here and reacting to these options and telling us what works and what doesn't work as it relates to the way the boundaries are configured. So we looked at student data based off the RPS student database that we obtained, mapped out those kids. We have the planning block data, and each of those planning blocks tells you how many students live inside each zone that goes to their school. And then on top of that, we've added in students who are enrolled into a building from out of zone into that school to preserve the open enrollment nature of Richmond. There's a lot of students that enroll from out of zone. And so the way we estimate enrollment is that we're assuming that same rate of students are going to attend into a school from out of zone. And the way that we're estimating is the best way to do it for a district like Richmond. So option one, big picture things with option one is that there are no schools are closed, there's no grade reconfiguration. It's just straight rezoning. It's just moving the boundaries around to try to accomplish our objectives. There's no pairing of schools, nothing like that. We're not closing anything. We're just realigning boundaries to help balance utilization in option 1. Most of the rezoning you'll see is north of the river and around Broad Rock Elementary. So there's a lot of rezoning up in the northeast around George Mason Elementary. There's also some stuff around Holton and in Ginter Park, in that area, and Carver. And then, so the north has a lot more movement. In the south, it's limited to areas around Green. And so Green is helping to provide relief to Broad Rock. And in some cases, in option 2, I think 1 or 2, Francis comes into play. And Francis, some adjustments with Francis to try to balance utilization, and Oak Grove. But, so I would focus on and when you look at elementary, most rezoning is north of the river and around Broad Rock. Little to no rezoning south central and southwest part of the division. That should say west, for like Southampton, Fisher, Southampton, and areas. And some of the areas, those we don't have any options that show and change those areas, just because there's not a whole lot that we can do to try to balance utilization in certain parts. So we in these drafts determined to not make any changes. Thompson Middle School remained open, so there's a zone around Thompson, and there's a zone around the new site at the new middle school at Whole Street. So that's something that exists in 1. In middle schools and high schools, there's just more general rezoning to align feeder patterns. So when you look at changes to middle and high school, most of the time, if not including the new site as a whole, but basically rezoning to align feeder patterns is primarily what you're seeing there, and also balancing utilization. Option 2, the big difference between 1 and 2 is that there are some pairings that are introduced for you guys to consider. So John D. Carey and Fox are paired in option 2. And that means that there's one zone for the entire both schools, and K through 2 grades go to Fox's case, and 3rd through 5th grades go to Carey. And that was done actually with an effort to try to provide a more diverse environment among those 2 schools. And you'll see in some of the race and ethnic data that there is a substantial improvement in doing that. Also, Woodville and Fairfield Court are paired in option 2. Just something else for you to look at. That was done not much for race and ethnic diversity, because both of those schools are predominantly black population. But it's basically done because pairing those two schools helps equalize the utilization of those 2 buildings in a better manner. So you can take a look at the utilization of those schools. In that case, it's K2 at Fairfield Court and 3rd through 5th grade at Woodville. And then option 2 does have a zone to balance utilization, mostly around the North River and Broad Rock and elementaries. And little to no southwest regarding elementaries is, again, the Thompson Middle School is assumed to remain open in option 2 as well. So the big difference between there's different looks as it relates to rezoning all 3 levels, but the big difference between 1 and 2 is 2 introduces some pairings. And so, if you guys like one parent or don't like another, that's what I want to hear from you is what do you like and what don't you like, because we can make hybrid maps too. We can say, okay, we like this one paired, we can build that to another option and make some hybrids here. Looking at elementary options, and this is in your option statistics packet as well as the plots, you can see that this basically shows you the estimated enrollment for each option per building for elementaries. And that's not as easy to interpret, but if you want to know how many students are in each building in a particular option, this is what you would go to in your option statistics packet. This right here is give you a better look at it in terms of utilization. So you can see in terms of utilization, this is your current enrolled utilization. So Broad Rock is the one that's probably the most overcrowded school, one of them. You can see we bring it down to 120 in option 1 and bring it down to 105 in option 2. But we weren't able to bring it down below 100% without overcrowding another building in the area. But you can see here that the current enrollment is and how the actual utilization is to see how they compare and where we're providing relief and where we're not providing relief to some schools. So this is something that I'd like you to also look at when you try to break into groups. Enrolled utilization, so this is the race and ethnic content composition of the school. So I have you this is the current enrollment, and then the draft option 1 for elementary race and ethnic. There wasn't, I wouldn't say there are any big substantial strides, improvement strides in option 1 as it relates to race and ethnic composition of schools. But this is something that you could look at to see how they compare building to building as it relates across the board. Option 2 is the one that does provide the biggest benefit in option 2 is with Cary and Fox. You can see if you look at John B. Cary currently, it's 86% black, 9.9% white, and in Fox is 21.5% black, 65.7% white. If we were to pair these buildings as a K2, 3, 5, Cary would be 51.9% black, 42% white, which is close to the district average. And then Fox is 43.8% black, 46% white, and then 9.4% other is the other category. So it's much more of a balance if you were to pair those buildings. And you would adhere to your objectives if that's something that we wanted to consider in terms of pairing schools. It's something that we do see as a measure to help make environments more diverse, certainly. So that certainly demonstrates that. These show the feeder pattern splits. So the first, we always show you the current data, and then we show each option. So you can see just the general size of the list for feeder patterns, something that I look at. So this is the current, and this is the option. So we've reduced the feeder patterns. And then what I look for here are, okay, if it's 2 schools, the 68-32, that's not too bad. But if you look at like small percentages, 3 elementary schools split to 3 middles, those are the ones we try to avoid. And 3 elementary split to 3 middle schools are things that could possibly be resolved. And we have resolved a lot of those in these options as we look at feeder patterns. And I have some overview slides as well. So option 2 as well, we reduce the number of splits, bring those splits down. I think we reduce them by half in some cases in some of these options.
Why are we talking about split?
Well, feeder patterns, it's best to try to have all of an elementary feed into a middle, so that's that continuity of students going to the next level of familiar faces. If you have to split an elementary, it's best to have a balanced split. So what you want to try to avoid are some of these small splits like this, because think of the 7 students that go to Carver, and then when they go to middle school, they go to Benford. They don't know, they're not going to see many familiar faces when they go to that next level. It's more of the social dynamic and best practice to try to keep the students together when they go to the next level, so that they have can maintain those social dynamics and keep building on that.
I guess I'm thinking more along the idea that probably isn't like a focus, because so many kids go to secondary school for middle school now, so they're not going to be their kids anyway.
There is a lot of open choice here. You're right. So some of those kids may not. This is based on we calculate this based off the students where they live for elementary and middle. So it's not to say that these 7 students are actually showing up at Benford. They may be open and roll into another building and stuff. But this kind of gives you some statistics to see if the students in that area go to their neighborhood school. That's the split, and that's the best way to do it. This shows you impact data. So you can see in option 1, we have 1,200 elementary students impacted. So a lot more students are impacted in option 1, a lot more movement. Option 2 impacts fewer, so that's something to note. And then the tan lines show you where the students are moving. So we're moving 106 students from Bellevue to Chimborazo in option 1. And then 20 students are getting moved from Bellevue to Mason. And so there's a lot of adjustment. In option 1 also, something I see as a weakness in option 1 is that Bellevue, in order to try to provide a balanced utilization, Bellevue pulls into Fairfield Court, actually sends some students to Bellevue as a look. And so I'd like to see some of your thoughts on that. I'll show you that on the map here in a second. Here's option 1. Okay, so the black outlines are the current zones, and then the background color is the options. I'll start with the south. This is green right here, and then this is Broad Rock's area right here. So this section of Broad Rock right here gets pulled into green to give some relief to Broad Rock. Also, in order to balance things here, Broad Rock picks up a section of this eastern section of Francis to give Francis some relief. So it's a multiple shift here. And then Oak Grove picks up a section of northern section of Blackwell to go into out of Oak Grove to balance utilization. But you can see in elementary option 1, this is where the adjustments are being made. It's south of the river. There's nothing up in this region and beyond, just because there's not a whole lot of opportunity to balance utilization. If we wanted to add to Fisher and Southampton, you can only go so close, and you have these schools right here to where you're going to be passing a school in order to balance utilization. At a school like Westover Hills or at Southampton, there's not many students in here, so you draw this line to go to Southampton, and you end up running into the other buildings. So that became a challenge as we started working through rezoning. Looking up in the Church Hill area, this region, Bellevue currently pulls down this area, was in Bellevue. This goes to Chimborazo. But Bellevue, in this case, is picking up, is coming around and helping to relieve some overcrowding up in this area. This area was a challenge because of the number of seats that we're working with George Mason, trying to balance utilization in this area. But in this particular option, the section of Fairfield Court is feeding into Bellevue. And that's something that I'd like, it's not my favorite look, and it's something that, I'd like to get your take from it. But there's a lot of adjustment here. This is the Woodville section that comes down further south, and some of this area feeds into Fairfield Court. You can look that on the map. And then George Mason helps, pulls from Chimborazo, Bellevue, its current zone, and things like that. And then Carver is giving some relief to Fox down on this eastern edge, and also Holton, the northern part of Holton. And then Ginner Park is giving Holton some relief right here. This is I can't remember the name of the street that runs north. Chamberlain Road, yes, thank you. Chamberlain Road, it runs along the east of Chamberlain here that goes to Holton, is feeding into Ginner Park. And then some sections that over here that currently feed into Ginner Park are fed into Barack Obama to kind of balance utilization at the elementary level. Some of the advantages that I have noted for option 1, and you guys can certainly expand on that.
For this option, it looks like the Bellevue is a light purple, and then the Fairfield Court Woodville is a dark purple, so instead it drops down to purple.
That's option 2.
Oh,
So they are similar colors of purple, but yeah, you see it there in option 1 here. So some of the things that I have noted in studying these maps is that there is a better balance of building utilization among the schools, division-wide at elementary option 1. Feeder patterns from elementary to middle are cleaner. Only 3 elementary split to more than 1 middle school. So you have 13 current splits from elementary to middle, and in option 1 you have 7 splits total. So that's something that I see as an advantage. Do provide relief to Holton and Fox in this option, and then utilization relief in the south is provided to Broad Rock, and Francis gets relief here. And then you're effectively utilizing green to help provide as much relief as possible. Some of the limitations for option 1 are that there is no real change in the race or ethnic demographic of schools, and what option 1 shows. It does impact twice as many students as over twice as many as option 2. There's an oddly shaped zone for Bellevue, like I told, it's going up far north and pulling down, and that's something that sort of goes against the transportation efficiency that we are focused on, part of our criteria. No relief to Mary Munford. So Mary Munford is a school that remains overcrowded, and so that's something that I'd like to get your take on that for Mary Munford. South, Broad Rock, Reed, and Jones remain over 110%, so we provided relief, but as you can see, we're not able to give everybody the adequate relief that they need as a result of the new construction that's being planned here. And there's no relief provided to Jones, Reed, or Red elementary schools south of the river, and that's something that is a challenge in either option. Yes.
Where you talk about there's no relief for those schools,
is there, I mean, is the only option another building in those areas? Like, I mean, is that something that the community should be passing on to the school board? Like, because to see that there'll be these types of movement, but still no relief where we see those dark red pieces down there, like, is one of our recommendations, should that be that we need more seats in that?
I think that, what I would say is that the focus is to focus on the rezoning, but as you start to see it, and you start to see that the rezoning, where rezoning can't resolve the overcrowding, that's where we can make note, okay, we have tried everything we can to try to balance utilization here, and the only way to help resolve this overcrowding is to add capacity to the schools in that particular case, or to the region.
I have two questions. One of them's related to that, like the Clark Springs building that wasn't mentioned in your options. So like, are we gonna look at options that's gonna mention any of the other buildings that we have or property or something? And my second question is, for the options that you present, can you give the estimated longevity of these options? Like, I mean, your projection for like over the 10-year growth, where can you see where these options are not gonna meet the needs of our?
Yes, and so these are designed, or they should be built to live as long as possible. I think that what you're going to see is that we're providing relief to the schools that need it, but but then you basically look at the forecasted data to see where growth is going to continue, and I think it's a nature as a district changes. This probably isn't going to be the last rezoning study that this district has to do. But the last time we did this was about 10 years ago. And they've done some minor things since then to help address just specific imbalances. But I would hope that these would last, at least another 10 years. But that's not to say that if they determine they need to add capacity to a place, they're going to have to look at rezoning to account for added capacity and things like that. So it could be within 10 years if they do continue to add capacity to areas. And I would say that probably new construction may be a bigger driver of having to relook at the boundaries as opposed to just overall change over time in the boundaries, and the boundary not holding any longer.
And would you give us any options like that would recommend, like, you might need another elementary, or you might need another middle school in this area, or something like that?
Well, that's really our.
I know it's not something that's
I think that as you guys work through this and study this, those are the observations that you'll make. You'll make notes, and I'll take note of that. And those are things I'll certainly carry over to the board and tell them. This committee looked at every different way that they could to rezone, but they just, it's like 2 gallons of water in a 1-gallon bucket. Sometimes you just can't fit it all in a place. And you don't want to shuffle population around if it's not going to help resolve any overcrowding.
If I could just add, so I think we have to do 2 things, right? One is create new zones for the fall of 2020, knowing that there will be no additional new schools by the fall of 2020 other than the 3 we're building right now. At the same time, though, I do think we should, or I would hope the committee would say, look, we're going to do the best we can now on the south side, but we think there needs to be an extra elementary here and an extra whatever here, so that we can, part of this process in goal 3 is to update our master facilities plan. So we can go back and say, not only do we need to rebuild this school, but we actually need a brand new school over here in this neighborhood if we're going to effectively serve this population.
Yes. One more question, and I'm going to get back to it so we can break up into groups.
Well, yeah, it's more of a comment that since the subject came up of the potential need for new schools and so forth, I think this is a good time to mention or reiterate my concern that this whole analysis is based on an assumption of a very slow growth rate for the city. The assumption that's what's been happening firmly over the past decade, leading up to the new census data that will be coming out in 2020, as well as an assumption of slow growth moving forward from 2020 to 2030. And that's contrary to what the census data, the interim census data, such as the data that was used for this map, is saying, that American Community Survey data says that the city is growing much more rapidly already than what this analysis assumes. And a lot of other folks in Virginia who have been studying, new population forecasting and so forth, think the city will continue to grow much more rapidly. And at the same time, the city planning department is developing a new master plan for the city of Richmond that assumes and intends to accommodate that growth. And I can't say at this point specifically how that translates to potential concerns with the map, but I have an overall concern about that assumption of slow growth that's the backbone of this analysis.
So I would just say that that's really not, the reference material and forecast, there's things for food for thought and looking at this, but if you look at the overcrowding in certain parts of the area, if say we're off on what you guys have, because I remember we made a comment about some of your comments about that before. If you're much higher than what we are, then the issue's only going to get worse than what we have forecasted. So we're trying to provide balance and try to be proactive as we can. But you know, I would say that even if ours are correct or yours are correct or someplace in the middle is correct, it's still one way or the other. We're not showing decline. You're not showing growth. They're not opposing trends. We're both showing growth, and you're already overcrowded in many places. So. But I would say that if you have resources, I've been trying to reach out to regarding that, trying to reach the planner about that, Richmond 300, some of their aid data. If you can help and provide some, and you put me in contact with them, and I'll continue to try to research that. I have no problem giving this committee those numbers so they can look at that in comparison to demographic study. I think that's fine. That's something that you guys can look at. Two different sources, but I think the bottom line is growth is going to occur whether it's moderate or whether it's a high growth. It's not going to help one way or the other. It's not going to make the schools any better in terms of overcrowding that exists. Option 2 pairs Cary and Fox, and you can see that some of the eastern section of Fox feeds into Carver here, and this is a K235 model. And then Woodville and Fairfield Court are paired together here. You can see we still pull some areas out of both of those schools to help provide some utilization at George Mason, but less of an impact to Bellevue and Chimborazo. They are less impacted. Green has the same configuration here, pulling an area in out of Broad Rock, but in this case, Francis isn't part of the picture here. So Broad Rock remains at a lower utilization in option 2. And again, not much going on in this area because of the limitations, like I mentioned. And then similarities here, Carver doesn't stretch into Holton in this option, but you still see the Ginter Park adjustment and over here for elementary. Better balanced utilization, a pairing provides a more diverse environment. Fewer students impacted, a good feeder pattern benefits, like I said. Utilization relief to Holton and Fox, and then pairing provides better utilization to Woodville and Fairfield Court. And then more relief is provided to Broad Rock than option 1 in this particular option, and Green is being utilized effectively. Some limitations that pairing may be a new concept here in the division, may require some preparation and planning. And facilities may not be ideal for a K2 grade, so you may need more bathrooms, kids' bathrooms and things like that to make a K through 2 building. No relief to Mary Munford, carries over 100% the pairing concept, so it's something to look at the tables. And then we still have red split 3 middle schools in this option, and still limited relief to schools in the south. Middle schools, you can see the utilization of middle schools. We have and I'm calling it Elkhart, but it's the new middle school at Hull Street. That's 63% utilization in both options. And then you have Thompson Middle School here. So we have a zone for both buildings for the middle schools. But we do provide relief to schools, to some schools. Brown particularly gets the relief that it needs. It's the most overcrowded, as well as Bouchau. But you can look at the low utilization at Bouchau here. That's something that's not really ideal, a low utilization like that for that building in option 2. Race and ethnic, there are some impacts and things like that, but I'll let you guys take a look at that and tell me, if you see anything that strikes out to you and changes to race and ethnic. I don't think there's a whole substantial impact in one, like a big change like we did see in the pairing of schools.
And your point about the low utilization, the issues around low utilization are that it's it perhaps brought in staff, a building is lower?
Yes, lower utilization buildings can be just as challenging as an overcrowded building. Staffing, you can have higher class sizes sometimes. Not to mention that you're heating and cooling and cleaning a building that is not being effectively utilized. And that's some of the things that we saw with regarding Thompson and the new site at Elkhart, both being online. It lowers that utilization in some of that area, and I feel like you could probably make better use of your buildings and a more effective utilization if you did have a 3-school model south, and something to consider. Feeder pattern splits, we do make some improvements in feeder patterns from the options to look at the feeder patterns.
Matt? Sorry, I got a question.
Say again? What was the question?
Your percentage is right for Bouchard.
They should be.
They sure don't look like me.
Well, okay, now that's what I'm talking about. So Bouchard, and I had a question about from a committee member and a public member about that. So Bouchard does show 49.6% white, but it's but a lot of that is that's predominantly Hispanic. So that's why we broke down. If you look at that table that I provided you, and you look at the middle school data there, you can see that it does break it down Hispanic by race. And so you can see that tells you a little bit more of a story about that. And we'll be providing the data moving forward in that format so that you can see it broken down separately.
So, excuse me, so is that across the board, not just at Bouchard, and that the Hispanic students are in the figure of the white students?
Yes, because that's how they are white and they are black, and it's basically on how that population reports, that parent reports their child's race, and then they ask if you're a Latino, Hispanic ethnicity, yes or no. So you have to answer 2 different questions to get that, and that's why we break it out by Hispanic and non-Hispanic, and then black, white, and other. But we have provided the ethnicity data in more detail by race, so that you can be better informed by that. Feeder pattern splits are comparable between 1 and 2. But we do resolve some. You see currently you have some 3-way splits, and we have resolved some of those. You don't see as many, but you see Thompson Middle School split 3 ways because of the way the nature of the geography, and I'll talk about that in a second, that sort of what I was talking about feeder patterns. Relatively comparable impacts. Option 1 impacts fewer than option 2, but by about 400 students. So looking at the middle school, here you go. So here's Thompson Middle School zone, comes all the way down along here.
Yeah.
And so the alignment of this, and you have your high school here, and so what you see is if you try to draw two high school zones, you start seeing this getting split to multiple schools, because the configuration of the middle school zone goes this way, but the high schools go more like this. If we didn't have Thompson, we were looking at Brown, we could make a Brown zone, we can make an Elkhart, a new school zone somewhere here, and a Bouchard zone that kind of aligns better with the high schools. That's my thought on feeder patterns, in that the geography of the schools, if you had a 3-school model here, would lend better for feeder pattern alignment, and you would avoid fewer splits. Because the way Thompson's structured here, it crosses the whole river, goes all the way over to here. And that's somewhat unavoidable because of the nature of where Brown is located. And you can see in option 1, this is what Thompson does. And this is a section of MLK that we keep in Thompson. And we pull this out of Brown to give Brown some relief. And then the new school is relieving the southern part of Brown, northern part of Bouchard, and just a balance of utilization there. Henderson picks up some of MLK over here around, I believe that's Barack Obama Elementary. And then Hill picks up some more of Binford here. I think I've noted all these mostly. Lucille Brown gets utilization relief. Again, the question about Thompson Middle School is something I want to carry over to you guys to look at. Some of the limitations with option 1, Henderson still remains less than 50% utilized. So Henderson is a building that's underutilized, and we've added some population, but it's still on the low side. And then Thompson covers a large geographic area, like I had said, and you have overall low utilization in your middle schools. Option 2 is a little bit is different. Starting in the south, see Thompson actually wraps around and feeds in. So this area that was going to the new school is going to Thompson here, but that results in a very low utilization of I think Bouchal was the one I had mentioned that was very low utilization in this option, and pulling Elkhart pulls the Oak Grove area in. And then similarities that you see here in this area coming into Henderson, MLK doesn't come across the river, and Binford's pulling some in this area to relieve the Hill, give Hill some relief, balance utilization. I think I've covered most of these. Same things. Brown gets the utilization. Bouchal's a little low in option 2. Thompson's still split 3 ways. And Henderson's a little bit better in this one. They're 60% utilized. Looking at high schools, Armstrong sends some students to Marshall, the western part of Armstrong zone, in order to balance out utilization here. And you can see in option 1 and option 2, Jefferson's a little low in option 1, and Marshall's low in option 2. But look at Marshall now, so we're bringing up Marshall's population in every option to try to balance utilization and effectively utilize the space here.
And then this is live-in attendant.
This is live-in attendant, yes. And so, yes, but we're assuming if a student's coming into a school from out of zone, that rate is still coming. So schools, some utilization can be resolved by limiting the number of students coming in, like maybe capping enrollment. One of the examples was Mary Munford has a large number of students coming into Mary Munford from out of zone. That could be limited to help provide some relief to that school like that, or other buildings. And so that's just an example of ways that the division can make changes to help control utilization without rezoning. But yes, that is correct. Race and ethnic composition of schools. Not many students impacted at high school, really. We're looking at smaller numbers, basically to align feeder patterns is the objective here, and to try to give some relief to schools. This is high school option 1. So this eastern section of Jefferson is feeding into Henderson or Marshall, and then this western section of Armstrong feeding into Marshall, and then Wythe pulls some of the area, a little bit of area that's south of the river, out of Armstrong into Wythe, and then Huguenot gets some relief by some of this area sending around Westover feeding into Wythe, and the southern area feeding into Wythe out of Huguenot. Marshall does have an improvement in demographics in option 1, but Wythe and Huguenot remain over 90%. Thomas Jefferson's a little bit low in this option. Option 2, a little bit less in this area is pulled out of Jefferson. Henderson, Marshall looks a little bit smaller, still pulling the western side of Armstrong into to balance utilization. Some more area here pulled out of Armstrong and into Wythe, and then the same area out of Huguenot pulled into Wythe here, and then a high school option 2. Marshall's a little bit higher, 55% utilized in this. Huguenot gets some relief. Thomas Jefferson's still a little low, but Wythe and Huguenot remain over 90% utilized. I think you'll see that when you look at the high school map, high school utilization maps on the wall over here, look at the pink over there. You see Huguenot and Wythe, and over time, they all the schools south of the river get dark pink. So the bubble is moving its way to high schools, and overcrowding is something that's going to persist. So I want you guys to break into small groups. So we've got, let's see, 2 here, and maybe it would be best to consolidate into 3 groups. Yeah, sure.
What is the reasoning in option 2 of doing the pairing with the K2 and 3-5 as opposed to just moving lines? Like if the idea was to increase racial diversity, could we do that through drawing lines? Because I think it is really important for us to think about impact. And if a principal, has signed up to be a K through 5 principal, then what is the impact of that? So just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, we have looked at trying to move lines to help accomplish the same demographic benefit that we had, like in the pairing. But I think that you'll see that it's much more difficult, and you start to see drawing neighborhoods farther away from their home to go to school in order to accomplish that. But when you're looking at the maps and you're looking at an option, if you could think of a way to maybe align it to better, like by using rezoning, to try to achieve a balance, that's something that we can model and certainly can test. Yes?
I'd like to challenge the notion that Mary Munford can't be rezoned, because you had stated that they can just limit open enrollment. But the same thing is true at Fox and Holton, the same rough proportion of students are out of zone. And I believe historically the planning block 136 was part of Cary.
Okay.
So that isn't outlandish to slide that over.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I want you guys, when you break into your small groups, to give me those thoughts and those ideas. And that's all information that I can build on and react to some of your thoughts. So why don't we break into some small groups, and what I would encourage you, if you have additional questions, to mark them on the notepads. But take a look and dive into the maps. You have markers, and I really encourage you to mark up the maps and give me all that, because I take this back and study it to help develop new maps. So, do we want to break? So let's see. Do we want to break in? Do I want to send some more people to this table to sort of spread it out a little bit? Maybe one of you guys, maybe two.
Does it matter, do you want Kelly and I that know an area to work together? Or do you want people, I really don't know anything about the south of the James, but what is your goal? Do you want people to flesh out a certain region?
Well, what I want you to do, I want you to focus on everything, the big picture of all the maps. But I do want you to use your local knowledge, your knowledge of the area. So I don't think it's necessarily that all the Fox, Mumford, Cary group is here, and the Northern River there, South River there. I would encourage you to kind of mingle together and talk together and give those perspectives. So what if we had, would you mind going to this table over here? Let's see, so then we have 4 here, 5 here. 4. So then if you went over there, and then 5. So we have 3. Could maybe one of you guys go to this table? Let's see, we have 4, no, we have 5 here, we're good. If you go there, then we're pretty balanced in terms of well, what I'm asking you to do is to look at the maps, look at the 2 options, and just give me your gut reaction to what you think about the maps. Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to. We can build together. Yeah. Any questions you have?
says that's how many children are enrolled in the state. That are enrolled this year. Oh no, I'm sorry, 807. 807. It's not even half. This is the problem.
So we took this huge chunk that's what so much more. So this is the current and this got moved out. That's why I didn't want feeder patterns and also like this is something that feeds into the shop. School attack part of it. Utilization. That's all part of it too. If we could. But a lot of them are close to
Oh, I see. So they're only like 12. They're only like 7.
But that's a good number, but the problem is
I'm sure there were kids that did things to
this area used to be Jones and it was actually up north. But if you have something you can mark it up with some markers, you guys can
You've already started doing that, haven't you?
yeah.
This is great.
rather go this way. So that's why you see all the where the location
Western Hills is also
Swansboro, remember what kind of facility that is. But don't know what crowd. Mindful of that.
Is this like on like TV? Public? Oh really? Can they hear what you're saying?
Actually, no, you're fine. What's that?
You were saying that 1 mile
All the changes will go. Over here. This is very similar. Yes, you Yeah. What do you guys think about pairing their report with Yeah. We do poll an area that's 120 kids. It makes me a challenge trying to follow it's just difficult in the number of symptoms here. You have high population, density, low density down here. And so that's where you're seeing
It might have been. No, you couldn't see anyone on the camera. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. No, you can't see you. You're good.
that goes to.
Blackwell could also certainly take a couple of
With the Fox District.
Blackwell is definitely. Of course, yeah, they're just, I just saw the paper that they're gonna, they're just so just this past week.
So then like what, there's 170. Okay, so over 100%. Well, see how one already does that. Look at the numbers for
But we still
Right now. Right. But see, one like right now, they build an apartment here now. So some of them started to build. Oh no, but some of them to me it's
Right at that bridge.
But that's what I'm saying.
I know, but see how odd, see, this is the annexed area. Yeah. This is the annexed area. That's what
That's what I was thinking of.
all of these have space, that's what I said, like,
Well, no, but that's what I was saying. If the building is right, and that's an option. That's right, that would only make sense. That's right, that's possible, right? That's the exact
or this corner of Fred, which is also right on
right, and I think it's certainly,
I'm the bargain candidate.
If we could pick it up, with a big old crane. You need real stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
You never, if you're leaving West Tangent for $1 a year, never sold it. So we cut a deal with them. Also, they did do it these days.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, I had two of them.
Then I think it will come
Now I guess to say, oh, wait, you get
sorry, I'm not supposed to talk. Right now. Yeah.
Middle school, and really what I like about it is consider should I look at a top?
We will. Right number
Take a look at middle school.
Yeah, it's full now.
Two different, like, one is New Thompson, what's
Okay, New Thompson, or new Elkhart, new site.
okay, so you're calling the new school Elkhart.
Yes, and this is the old Thompson. So that's Elkhart, that's the current Elkhart.
So is there an option here for us to look at that no there is this here?
No, not yet. I mean, if you guys say, great option, then I'll do it. Yeah, that's
So the
something.
initial call, right,
Yeah, so that's around. It's south side.
but now there's this idea that
And then they have to make all the yeah, they basically moved that whole zone. So, maybe some people chose to go elsewhere.
Well, it's not the exact. Right.
We're like, we got about 20 minutes before we should you guys take middle school? Oh, you live in middle school? Well, I mean, what I can do is I can model it and see what it looks like. It doesn't hurt for me to draft an option to show it. I do think it's more like 80%. Well, you probably have that. I think that with the size of Elkhart, There you go. Yeah. So I mean, I think we've kind of taken some initial looks at it. I think it's something that could be fun. I mean, it not hurt to see what it looks like.
Right. I don't know. Right now, Judge and Brad already and of course,
Right now, it feels like this. It feels like this is
Yeah, it was a challenge to do this. And we've done some of this.
so I think that's and my idea for all Boston schools are gay, all three and it's working. It has a big got a lot of conflict.
You can just maybe kind of wrap up your thoughts and maybe designate somebody to do the speed meeting, and somebody, you guys just kind of put your thoughts together. We got about 15 minutes. We're going to regroup here real soon, okay, guys? We're going to regroup here real soon, so maybe just kind of gather your thoughts and some of your comments. And then we'll Okay. I think your other tables will help too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so it's 10 till, and I know we've got 4 groups, some really good discussion going on, but I want to be respectful of your time. Sorry if this is real loud, so guys. And be respectful of your time, so I think that what we'll do is we'll regroup, and then have each group just kind of share their thoughts with us. And we'll go, and I'll take notes, and see where we go from here, okay? Okay, so who wants to go first? What group wants to go first? You want to go first?
We only got as far as the but we did have some thoughts on the we didn't pick from either of the 2 options, although I think it was intended to pick the second option over the first. But we want some new maps. Diversity is very important to us, and we like that pairing of John B. Carey with Fox. We did not, on the other hand, like the pairing of Woodville and Fairfield. And we didn't like it because, as one of our teachers pointed out, this is a real burden on parents, the kind of parents that have 2 jobs. They've got kids in 2 different schools, in 3 different schools, and there's no diversity there. And here's our big one. Close Bellevue. Most of the students from Linda just looked at me and said, what's the Okay, Close Bellevue is a very old facility. The kids that go to Bellevue come largely from Fulton and Williamsburg Road. None of them come from the neighborhood. And send those kids to the new George Mason. The new George Mason is not going to get the capacity on either of the options. What else do we have? Well, we increased the use of George Mason. We're going to have a nice new school that's filling up. Nothing on high school, nothing on middle school. We did have a little bit on the south side. Miles Jones is passing. Elizabeth Red is over passing. And it's a really tough situation, as I'm sure you all know. We did see some slicing at Miles Jones, which you could probably do and scoot those students to Southampton. Because Southampton it looks to me awfully full when I go up there, but you say it's not. I don't think it is. So those were our suggestions. I'm speaking for, I didn't have any suggestions.
Yeah, you're the spokesperson, huh? Did you guys have any conversation about Thompson Middle School or anything like that? Probably didn't discuss it.
Well, we
That's
assume
okay.
it's going to stay open.
As the current draft options show it open, yes. So, okay, that's fine.
I don't know what you do.
Right, okay. Well, thank you. That's very good input, and make sure I have your notes, and I will look at using this to build another option. What about you guys? You want to go next?
Okay, so when we talk about the elementary schools, we agree but not closing it, to utilize it in a different way. So instead of closing it, make it another East End preschools. And so then you have all of your preschoolers feeding into that school for that area. And the same thing with Swansboro, make that a preschool hub for the south side, so that way you can free up the annex building in Blacksville. That's a whole other space that you can utilize for K1 and 2. And you can use the model that he suggested, so your K1 and 2 could go there, your 3, 4, 5 in the big building, and then you can free up some space at Oak Grove, which in turn will help free up space in Broad Rock. You could send some other preschools to Swansboro as well, so that could free up space in some of the other schools for your older kids. Because some of those other schools have preschool classes, and you can utilize that space.
The one thing that I was kind of struggling with is I don't think we've had enough time to really fully digest and discuss all of these. I've kind of sat in on 2 groups a little bit, and I mean, I think that one option would be to look at, doing some level of like, if we're gonna agree not to send kids across the river, then let's have a group, like a subgroup that does north of the river and a subgroup that does south of the river, or do something so that we can focus on. I mean, I hear what you're saying about the whole citywide thing, but it's a lot to digest in 30 minutes or an hour. I think we're gonna need more time, like more meetings, and I think we're gonna need to like focus people in specific areas.
Okay.
I can just add, so we will put a couple more meeting dates on the calendar. We just haven't had a chance to kind of think through when that would make sense. Probably also just some longer times.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We also decide to make John B. Carey a preschool for the West End. So we bring preschools to the preschool.
And on the Thompson question, as we mentioned, we thought it would be helpful for this team to see what a 3 middle school map might look like on the south side. Because right now there are 4 middles, which underutilizes one, so it's hard to see how we might split these kids up between 3 middles. So we can see that 3 middle option.
And we wanted the same thing too.
Okay, so some of the things that you're talking, like the closure of Bellevue and preschool recommendations, those are things that will sort of go along the ride with the recommendation. I think that those are like things that I'm talking about where you have a recommended rezoning plan when this is all said and done, and then there's other food for thought, like maybe look at putting pre-K programs in buildings that have more capacity. And the Bellevue thing is something that I'll talk with the division about, see if that's something that we want to model and how far we want to go with that. I think that if you did say you did have a recommendation that kept Bellevue online and George Mason, if down the road they decided to do something like that, then they're right next to each other. They could just consolidate the 2 zones if that were something that was beyond what you guys, beyond your task in terms of rezoning recommendation. But that's something that's a little bit beyond what we are tasked to do, but I mean, it certainly is an observation that you see that may help provide better balance utilization, better use George Mason. So,
if I may just piggyback, and I think what drove that thought was the fact that you're building a $30 million school and you're still having it at 54 or a little above 54% capacity, which does not make sense. And that's not, to me, a good use of taxpayers' money. And in all of the schools, we have brand new schools, let more of our children go into that school from the East End and be able to benefit from a 21st century facility.
what about you guys? You guys want to share your thoughts, comments?
Nobody wants to speak. We did focus a lot on the elementary schools, and where are they? We talked a lot about the option, the challenge in the Mary Langford, Fox, Cary, Carver area of the neighborhoods being divided socioeconomically, and yet communities like walkable schools. And so we did make some suggestions on the maps for different lines. With regards to option 1, Kim, as a Cary parent, was concerned about the K2, 3-5 option. So within our map, we just made changes on the Mary Munford side and the Fox side to try to improve socioeconomic diversity and relieve Mary Munford's overcrowding within a K-5 model. And let's see, our group really liked the movement on the south side for option 1, and our group did not like the movement on the south side for option 2. They didn't feel like enough was done. And what else did we talk about? In option 2, I pointed out that a challenge is Fox has roughly 500 something seats and Cary has roughly 370-ish seats. And so you're pairing a school, the schools don't have the same amount, they're not the same. So a challenge is hopefully the kindergartners move to first and second, hopefully they stay in the system and go to third, but then there's not enough seats. And then the line in option 2 divides the Fox Cary down a small street in the middle of the band, so it just wasn't a very logical dividing point. So all that we drew and made suggestions. Anything else from our group?
I see some middle school notes. You guys have any thoughts about middle school?
Let's see. Again, just like keeping walkable neighborhoods intact, I just had suggested Plainy Block 76 come into the rest of the band because it's off to hills. So I just said, hey, why don't you move that there? And we didn't really get into middle school. We kind of ran out of time.
Okay. That's fine. That's constructive stuff. Just make sure I have your notes so that I can look at and use that to drive some changes. Make sure I have. Yeah, the maps is perfect. Do you guys have any thoughts or any comments that you guys want to share?
Yes. Okay. Well, we added up, and my math was wrong at first, and then we got it right. So we can break it into 3 middle schools on the south side, and they will all fit in 3. So that was our recommendation. We need a new school somewhere near Summerhill. And then I had also, we could move some, we just can't move enough people into the Southampton neighborhood. The school is, we can move like 7 kids to Fisher, and then we're right at Southampton. All the rest of the kids are down here somewhere. So possibly we can move a few kids from Westover Hills, which is also over capacity, into the Southampton zone. That doesn't seem, or at the other end into the Blackwell zone. So Westover Hills has got some flexibility, but Miles Jones and Red and Reed, we just need a new school. But option 1 was our preference too, especially for the relief we gave to Frances. And maybe, we didn't spend a lot of time on the north of the riverside, but it does look like you could move some people from Munford to Cary.
And that's what this group did. I mean, it's good because you guys focus. Yeah.
It seemed like it would work. And certainly from Fox to Carver.
Yes.
Okay.
Plenty of room in Carver for some of those Fox kids.
We do some of that. We do some of that in an option, but the Mumford to Cary is something that we will model as a look. So one of the things I would, this has been great. This is really what I wanted to get. We accomplished our objectives and what we're trying to achieve. Oh yes, sir.
We didn't get a chance to talk about Southside. You had asked about Huguenot and Thompson. So I didn't get a chance to talk to the committee about this, but what about having Huguenot? Because Huguenot is really crowded in this particular board. To be Huguenot and merge with Thompson. And actually just one school. And actually, haven't looked at the numbers. And actually, when the freshmen come into Huguenot, to have them come into that particular building, and that free up space.
It's on the same campus.
Yeah.
You can see Thompson with Huguenot. So that certainly is a good thought. You know, make use of the Thompson facility to relieve overcrowding at the high school.
Absolutely. And the freshman class will give them that.
Okay.
Wonder why.
Okay, so this has been really good, really fruitful. Getting your feedback is going to drive maps. You know, if you guys have concern about time, that's something that we can manage. I'll talk with them about maybe if you guys are amenable to it, maybe expanding the amount of time we have at these committee meetings. Like if we could maybe go from like 5:30 to 8:30 or something like that. And I'll talk with the division about that so that maybe we can expand our time and then also look at adding another meeting or two. You know, we want to make sure that you guys don't feel rushed and certainly make sure that you have enough adequate time to look at this. And so we're making good progress here. We're right where I feel like we need to be. I'm going to bring this back to the office and generate maybe 2 options out of this, and then we'll have 4 options at the next meeting. The focus at that time will be probably see what top 3 or 2 or 3 we want to share with the public, or all 4, whatever you guys want to do, and then get some input from the public, and then keep working on the options. Take it back, you know, just checking in with the public and checking what we think, and then going back to work. So. This is all good. Just make sure that I have your notes. So, like, if you could, the plots that have the notes markings on them, make sure you can maybe separate those so that I can pick those up and take them with me. Yes, sir.
Quick question for you. Appreciate you saying that we were going to those options. Do you have any thoughts about when you may be able to get
Yes, and thank you. That's a good comment. So there was one of the committee members had emailed earlier, you know, saying that they felt like you guys need more time. But we hear this from committees all the time, and being able to see things in advance. I think that tonight we wanted to be able to tell the story before we put options out there and show it to you. So the options were posted last night, and it got out there before this meeting. But we wanted to make sure that you guys had a chance to be able to hear us and understand the rationale of some of these maps. But, you know, I think that now we've got maps out there and they're being shared. I think we're at a point where we can start being more proactive and share things with you in advance. So if we have things ready, and we will certainly make work to provide those to you in advance. I think our next meeting is July 30th. And so that gives us, we have a month to prepare. And so I will promise you that we will provide you materials in advance of that meeting, at least a week before, so that you can look at them. And if there's any other follow-up information, things like that, we'll communicate that to you as soon as possible. The school division will send them out to you, because I don't even have you guys' contact info. But the school division will send you guys an email. I'll email them all the materials, and they'll probably forward it from me, and then you'll have them. And so, well, you can look at it digitally, and you can look at it digitally or print it, and until the meeting, we'll have them printed for you when you show up at the meeting. But you know, I could talk with them and maybe see if we can't print in advance for you as well. But I'll take note of that follow-up with the district. You'll pick yours up in advance if they can be printed. Okay.
Maybe the school division can have them, even if it's downtown,
Okay. So I'll ask you if that's something that they can do. They can print them early and give you some time to look at them, like on paper. Yes, ma'am.
Can we also look at the process or procedures for who's sending out information and who we should be looking to get information? I got several notices and with different times for the meeting today, and I'm thinking it's been changed. Had to call for it. I missed the 12 to 2 o'clock meeting, and so
yes, okay.
That can be a little confusing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I think that for consistency's sake, that communication on meetings. Who does that? They said last time it came from Mr. Simmons.
Yes. So all future communication will come from Mr. Simmons. We'll make sure to do a better job of streamlining that. And putting some more dates on the calendar, optionally for folks who want to dig in a little bit more. Maybe we could do like an elementary night, a middle school, high school night. We could do a south side night, north side night, east side, something like that. So folks want to dive in on particular things. Because I know it's, for myself, it's like overwhelming to try to absorb all at one bite. So we'll come up with some options, put them on the calendar, and have a party.
Yeah, did you want to?
You know why?
Oh, sure, yeah. Daryl Williams from the Office of Engagement. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to mention something that Dr. Harris mentioned the last time we were together. We talked about how we're going to have a number of community meetings around rezoning, really just informational meetings that we want to have out in the community. But I just wanted to mention again for anybody that wasn't here last time, and for those who were here, we talked about if any of you were interested in hosting something. I remember we talked about it last time. So if anybody's interested in hosting a meeting or work partnering with us, you know, we can host it in your district or in, you know, whatever. We can talk about that process. But if you're interested, I have a sign-up sheet. Just leave me your information before you leave out, and then we'll connect and we'll go from there. But we want to have a number of these meetings, and I just want to give you all the opportunity to work with us on that. So, thank you.
Yes, so, yes,
And
ma'am.
I don't want to go too much off the rails. My question is, as I look at us talking about redistricting and whatever in a new school district, what's the general condition of our schools that we're talking about moving kids back? What's that about? How are we doing with that?
Well, that's, you know, the condition of facilities that's another conversation in itself, and what the division needs to do to improve facility condition. It's, you know, so that's something that's really not on our plate, and we have plenty enough to bite off right now. But, you know, facility condition is a challenge here in Richmond. It's something that a lot of facilities are in poor condition, and so I think that it's something that the district is mindful of, and they have a lot of things to do here. You know, there's a lot of challenges to help make the you know, the schools better in terms of condition and things. But I'd say that's not part of our charter. Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, right. Okay, guys, so our next meeting is July 30th. It's at 6 p.m. We're going to have it at Thomas Jefferson High School Media Center. Hopefully it's just as nice as this was, because this is a really good space to be. Yeah. So, but for now, it's Thomas Jefferson High School at 6 p.m. on July 30th, okay? So thank you all. You guys have a great night, and happy 4th of July. We'll talk to you soon.